There's a black stain on a piece of wood in your house right now that you've already given up on. The dark ring where a plant pot sat too long. The shadow under the spot the dog's water bowl lived for a year. The mark on the dining table from a glass nobody wiped up back in 2019. You've looked at it, decided it's permanent, and trained yourself to stop seeing it. A flooring pro agrees with you. Their fix is to sand the whole floor down past the stain or pull the board out and replace it. Hundreds of dollars, sometimes thousands. And if it's a thin, antique top or a veneer, they'll tell you straight it can't be saved. It can be saved for about $1. With something that lifts that black up out of the wood in seconds and never touches a single layer of the surface. It's sitting in your hardware store right now in the wrong aisle under a label that doesn't say what it actually does. And the reason you've never heard of it has nothing to do with whether it works. Before we get into it, by the end of this, I'll show you a 10-second test that tells you which kind of stain you've got. The kind this erases, the kind that needs a different trick, or the kind no chemical on earth is going to fix. Most people are staring at the first one and have no idea. So here's what that black mark actually is. Once you see it, the fix is going to make complete sense. That stain isn't dirt. It isn't sitting on top of the wood like a spill you can scrub. It's a chemical reaction that happened down inside the wood fibers. Here's how it got there. Water found some iron, a nail under the surface, a steel furniture leg, the metal base of a planter, sometimes just little bits of steel wool left behind from an old sanding job. The water dissolved a trace of that iron and carried it into the wood. And waiting in there was tannin, a natural acid that lives in almost every kind of timber. It's heavy in oak and walnut, which is exactly why those woods stain the worst. The iron met the tannin, the two reacted, and the spot turned black. That black is a compound called iron tannate. And here's the part that got me when I started digging into this. People make that exact reaction on purpose. Woodworkers call it ebonizing. They dissolve steel wool in vinegar, brush it onto raw oak, and the wood turns deep, rich black in minutes. No stain, no paint, just the reaction. It's a prized finish, and furniture makers charge a premium for it. So that ruined mark on your floor? It isn't damaged the way you think it is. It's an accidental version of a finish people pay good money for. Your wood got ebonized by a leak, which means it can be unebonized. That's the whole trick. You're not removing a stain, you're reversing a reaction. And this is exactly why sanding is the wrong tool for it. The reaction didn't happen on the surface. It happened down in the grain, as deep as the water managed to soak. To sand it out, you'd have to grind off every layer of wood the iron reached. On most floors, that means cutting down to nothing. And on veneer, that paper-thin top layer glued over cheaper wood, sanding through the stain means sanding through the veneer itself, and the piece is ruined. That's why the pro says replace it. He isn't lying to you. With the tools he's got, he's right. But there's a tool that goes where a sander can't. It's called oxalic acid. It comes as small white crystals, and it has one job that matters here. It loves iron. You dissolve the crystals in hot water, brush the solution onto the black mark, and the acid hunts down the iron locked inside that iron tannate compound, grabs onto it, and breaks the bond. Now the black has nothing holding it together. It lifts, and the wood underneath, which was never actually damaged, just discolored, comes back to its original color. And it's fast. One furniture restorer described black spots on walnut lifting out almost as quick as they'd set in. You brush it on, and the stain starts pulling up out of the grain right in front of you. No sanding, no grinding, no replacing. A few cents of crystals doing what a belt sander physically cannot. Now here's where this stops being a neat trick and starts being a little maddening. This isn't fringe. This isn't some hack somebody invented online last year. Oxalic acid has been the standard tool for this in the furniture restoration world for more than a century. Popular Woodworking calls it one of the most useful products in all of wood finishing, and in the same breath points out that it barely gets any attention. The pros know. They've always known. One of them wrote about a walnut tabletop covered in black water stains that most people would have hauled to the dump because sanding it down would have destroyed the top. The oxalic acid brought it back without removing a thing. And it isn't just furniture. A flooring contractor told a story about a client who was convinced she had to replace an entire 1920s oak floor over water damage in one corner. The quote, "to tear it out and start over," was the kind of number that makes you sit down. Instead, the contractor treated the stain and refinished the floor and saved that homeowner more than $4,000. Same floor, same 100-year-old character. The damage that was supposed to mean demolition turned out to mean an afternoon and a few dollars of chemistry. Let me put some numbers on this because the gap is honestly hard to believe. A 2-pound bag of pure oxalic acid runs $10 to $15. But here's the thing. That one bag handles dozens of stains, and because it's a dry powder, it never expires. Buy it once and you're set for years. The actual acid in any single job is a few tablespoons. Pennies. Call it $1 a job and you're rounding up. Now the other side of the ledger. Refinishing a hardwood floor runs $1,100 to $2,700. Repairing water-damaged hardwood runs $1,000 to $6,000. Restoring an antique piece professionally runs $300 to $800 a piece. And if a contractor decides the wood has to come out entirely, replacing it runs $5,000 to $15,000, sometimes more. For a black mark in one corner. A black mark that's an accidental dye, a $1 acid reverses in seconds. $1 against $5,000. The cheap fix isn't a little cheaper. It's the kind of cheaper that doesn't fit on the same chart as the expensive one. So if it's this cheap, this old, and this well known to the people who restore wood for a living, why has nobody ever told you? Nobody buried it. There's no secret meeting. The truth is quieter, and in a way it's worse than a conspiracy. The knowledge lives in one world. Furniture restorers, antique dealers, finish carpenters, and it never crossed over into yours. It stayed a trade secret not because anyone guarded it, but because nobody had a reason to hand it to you. Walk the chain for a second. The flooring contractor who comes out to look at your stain makes nothing by telling you about a bag of crystals that costs less than his lunch and lasts you for years. He makes $2,000 refinishing the floor or $10,000 replacing it. The second he mentions the acid, he's talked himself out of the job. That's not villainy. That's just a man who needs to get paid, choosing not to volunteer the one fact that costs him the paycheck, and the product itself does nothing to help you find it. It sits in the paint stripping section of the hardware store in a box labeled wood bleach, a name that tells you nothing about black water stains and actually scares people off, because who wants to pour bleach on their good oak? There's no sign over it that says this erases the stain you think is permanent. It's been sitting on that shelf for decades, doing nothing, waiting for someone who knows what it's for. And maybe right now you're thinking this doesn't apply to you. You don't even have hardwood floors. But this works on any wood. The antique dresser you inherited with the black rings on top. The one you were about to drag to the curb. The butcher block with the dark stain by the sink. The old door, the windowsill, the dining table that's been in the family long enough to collect a story in every mark. If it's wood and it's gone black from water, this is the fix. And if you rent, you can quietly save the floor you are about to lose your whole deposit over. All right, here's how you actually do it. First, the 10-second test I promised, because it decides everything else. Look hard at your stain. Is it black, dark brown, or gray? Sitting down in the wood like it's part of the grain? That's the iron tannin stain. That's the one the acid erases. Is it white, cloudy, or hazy? Floating on top like fog under the surface? That's a completely different problem. And I'll give you that fix in a minute because it's even easier. And the last test, the important one. Press a screwdriver into the wood. If it sinks in soft and spongy, the wood is rotted, the structure is gone, and no chemical on earth fixes that. That board has to come out. The acid brings back color. It can't rebuild wood that's turned to pulp. If your stain passed, black and the wood underneath still hard, here's the process. You'll need oxalic acid. Ask for it by name at the hardware store, or look for wood bleach in the paint aisle. Savagran makes a common box. You can also order the pure crystals online by the pound for not much more. Grab gloves and eye protection while you're at it, and I mean that, more on it shortly. The acid only works on bare wood, so if your stain is under a finish, a sealed floor, a varnished tabletop, you've got to get down to the raw wood over the stain first. Strip the finish or lightly sand just that spot until the wood is open and breathing. This is the one extra step the bare gray decks in my wood restoration video didn't need, so don't skip it. The acid can't reach iron, it can't physically touch. Now you mix, and do it in a plastic container, never metal, because the acid reacts with metal, and you'll weaken the solution and ruin the bucket. Stir the crystals into hot water, as hot as your tap will give you. Hotter dissolves more. For a normal stain, a few tablespoons to a quart of water is plenty. For a stubborn, deep one, mix it strong. Keep adding crystals until no more will dissolve and they just sink to the bottom. Brush it generously over the whole stain, and a little past the edges too, so you don't end up with a hard line where the treated wood meets the rest. Then you wait. On a fresh stain, you'll watch the black start to lift in seconds. On an older, deeper one, give it time, let it dry, and if a shadow is still hanging around, hit it again. Stubborn stains sometimes take 2 or 3 passes. That's normal. It isn't failing, it's working in layers, peeling the reaction back a little at a time. When the black is gone, you're still not quite done. And this last part is where people quietly ruin the whole repair. Rinse the area thoroughly with clean water until it runs clear. Leftover acid crystals sitting in the grain will fight your new finish and keep it from gripping. And that's exactly how a good stain job ends up. Peeling within a year. So rinse it well, then neutralize it. A little baking soda dissolved in water, wiped over the spot, to settle any acid that's left behind. Now let it dry completely. A full day or 2, until the wood isn't damp to the touch. 'Cause finishing over wet wood fails. Once it's dry, stain it if you want, seal it, and the repair disappears into the rest of the wood like it was never there. Now the question you're probably already asking, won't I just trade a black spot for a bleached out pale spot? Fair worry. But oxalic acid is gentle about this. It pulls the iron color out and brings the wood back toward its natural tone, instead of blasting it white the way the harsh 2-part bleaches do. That said, if the stain's sat for years, it may have shadowed the wood beneath it, and the treated spot can come out a shade lighter than the boards around it. The fix is easy. Blend it. A little matching stain, or refinishing the whole board or the whole area instead of just the one spot, and it vanishes into the floor. That's exactly what the contractor in that $4,000 story did. He treated the stain and refinished the whole floor so the eye read it as one piece, one more thing to watch. If the piece was deliberately stained a color, a walnut-toned table, a dark stained dresser, the acid can lift some of that intended color along with the black. Not a disaster. You just restain the area to match afterward. But test a hidden corner first, every time, so you know exactly what you're working with before you touch the part people see. And if your test came back white instead of black, that cloudy ring, that foggy haze, good news. You've got the easier problem, and you don't need the acid at all. That white mark isn't down in the wood. It's moisture trapped in the finish, sitting on top. You drive it back out with gentle heat. Lay a clean cotton cloth over the ring and run a warm iron, low heat, no steam, across it a few seconds at a time. Or work it with a hairdryer and watch the cloud shrink and vanish. If heat alone won't do it, a little oil, even plain mayonnaise or petroleum jelly left on overnight, displaces the moisture and clears it. No stripping, no acid, no cost. It can disappear in under a minute. Now the part I will not let you skip. Oxalic acid is poison, real poison. It can be fatal if you swallow it, and it burns skin and eyes. But here's the part that matters for actually using it. The real hazard is the dry powder. When you're scooping and mixing the crystals, you do not want to breathe that dust. So do your mixing outside or somewhere with good airflow, and throw on a dust mask if you've got one. Once it's dissolved in water, that dust danger is gone, and you can carry the solution inside and work on your living room floor with nothing but gloves and eye protection. Keep kids and pets clear of it, and never store the powder in an unlabeled container. Handle it with respect, and it's perfectly safe to use. Get careless with the dry crystals, and it'll hurt you. That's the whole deal. Same as the linseed rags in my wood video. The chemistry that does the work is the chemistry you handle like it means it. Here's the moment that makes the whole thing worth it. Go back to that stain you'd written off, the ring under the plant pot, the shadow on the table. Brush the solution across it, and watch. The black starts to bleed up out of the grain, lighter and lighter, like a bruise healing and fast forward, until the wood underneath shows through. The original color, the one you forgot, was even under there. The mark you'd stopped seeing because you decided it was forever. Gone. While you're standing there holding a brush. That's not a refinished floor. That's not a new board. That's the same wood you already owned, with the damage subtracted out of it. Here's what I keep coming back to. We're trained to look at a mark on wood and see ruin, a thing to sand away, replace, throw out, or pay somebody to deal with. And a huge amount of the time, the wood isn't ruined at all. The damage is a reaction, and reactions can run backward. That black ring was never permanent. It only looked permanent to everyone who only knew how to sand. And if the wood under that stain is also gray, dry, and weathered, sun-beaten the way an old deck or a forgotten table gets, that's a different reaction with a different $1 fix, and I've already got that one on the channel. Lift the stain out with the acid. Bring the whole tired finish back to life with that. And a piece you were ready to give up on looks like the day it was made. The wood was never dead. It was just waiting for someone who knew which reaction to run. If this is the kind of thing worth knowing, subscribe and tell me in the comments what black stained piece you're about to bring back. There's more coming.